Okay, good morning, afternoon, evening. Hi, everybody. It's Manda here today, and I'm here with SImonheals from his YouTube channel, and we're going to be talking about manifestation. Manifestation for me is something that I've done all my life, but what I've never done is manifest a healing center. So, of course, I thought I'd bring on a man who can, and here is SImonheals from Thailand to talk about his manifestation experiences in life. Hi, Simon. How are you doing?
Hi, Manda. Yeah, I'm doing well, and thank you. And I really actually didn't know what it is we were going to be talking about today, but that's a great subject, something that I'm always happy to discuss for sure. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so you're currently based in Thailand on the island of Koh Samui. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Koh Samui.
Koh Samui.
Koh Samui. Yes.
And you've been there for how long now?
Just over 9 years now. I'm in my 10th year of being here. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So it's really feeling like home.
Yeah, it is very much so. Yeah, it is. It's an incredible place to live. And in terms of manifestation, yeah, somewhere along the line, I did something right, and have kind of found myself, living in this beautiful paradise. So, yeah.
And that's really what you've created, isn't it? A paradise where you're living. And I don't know much about your past life, but I was thinking earlier today before I was speaking to you, because you're now SImonheals, there was a point, wasn't there, when you were Simon Styles, so to speak. So you've always done that creative stuff, because being a designer is an incredibly creative pursuit. So I guess creativity has always been with you. Would you say that would be the case?
For sure. Is that something that you came up with, Simon Styles?
Yeah. This morning I thought you needed to be Simon Styles.
I like it. I like it. I like it. It's a bit too late, really, to go back retrospectively and change my name. But yeah, and of course, SImonheals isn't my name. That's the name of my channel. And it's interesting how that came around, because my name is actually Simon Belcher, and many years ago, I just wanted a Gmail. I needed a Gmail account for something. I don't know what it was. And my name, Simon Belcher, was taken. And so was Simon Belcher 1 to 1,000. There must be so many Simon Belchers in the world. And it just came to me randomly, SImonheals. Yeah, that was available as a name. So little was I to know that when I recently, I think it was just earlier this year, that I set the channel up, that I needed a name for the channel. I was like, okay, now I know why, that name came. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we often experience time in this chronological linear way, but oftentimes our experiences and choices that we make in life are fitting together in a less linear chronological way,
Yeah,
so,
it's almost like Simon now jumped back into that time and said, your Gmail needs to be SImonheals.
Exactly. So yeah, so I think you're asking me more about like my kind of previous life in this lifetime anyway. Yeah, we won't go into my past lifetimes, I don't think we got enough time for that. But in this lifetime, yeah, I was in fashion, and it's interesting because on the face of it, it's so different than what I'm doing now, what I'm doing now is very much focused on healing. And as you said, I've got a healing center here over in Thailand. But, upon reflection, going back to when I started into fashion, when in my late teens and everything, it was really the way that for myself initially, and I could really make myself feel well, feel good through the clothes that I wore. And then I really wanted to extend that to other people. You know, it just became a natural, and that's how I got into being a fashion designer. So there, you know, so in a way, it also came from that whatever, I don't know, what would you call that kind of drive that I have within me to see other people feeling good and feeling well, you know. And then also from the perspective of understanding energy more, as I do now in the context of our health, I can also understand how, for example, colors in the clothes that we wear have a huge effect on our health, and how I suggest that we subconsciously even choose, for example, the colors that we're going to wear on any given day according to what we need energetically to bring us to balance, you know. And for anyone that has some kind of understanding of the chakras and how the chakras are often represented as being different colors. These colors aren't just kind of random colors that are used as for illustration. They actually represent the different energetic frequencies that each chakra holds. So let's say, for example, the root chakra, which is red. Well, it's not that the root chakra is red, but it vibrates. A healthy root chakra vibrates at the same frequency as the color red. So if you were to wake up one morning and let's say your root chakra isn't working as it should do, you may choose to wear something red that day at a subconscious level, just to, yeah.
Well, that's so interesting.
Just to kind of, it is interesting, yeah.
So, I mean, as a fashion designer in your previous incarnation this time round, you possibly didn't have any understanding of chakras or energy or vibration in the way that you have now, but you did gravitate towards using color and clothing to enhance people's physical experience and to make them feel good, which is, you know, I've never heard a fashion designer explain, and I know you're no longer a fashion designer, but explain their calling in that way, quite in that same way as you just have.
And, you know, when I was a fashion designer, I wouldn't have explained it that way. It's only now, you know, kind of retrospectively, from the perspective of working in healing, that I can kind of see it in that way. Yeah. For sure. You know, and from my understanding of health now, which I feel is a pretty holistic understanding of health, our emotions are really fundamental to our health, our emotional state. Our physical state is very much dependent on our emotional well-being. And so again, going back to the fashion, you know, I'm sure you know yourself as a consumer of fashion, and particularly as a woman, how the clothing that you wear can really alter your emotional state, both positively and negatively, you know. So yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? How our lives kind of manifest in relation to our I don't know what's the best way to put this, you know, because although I'm living a very different life now, that the life that I was living as a fashion designer was very aligned with who I was. It's not that I was out of alignment then and now I'm in alignment. It's just that I've changed, you know, and my role and my purpose. You know, we often think that purpose in life is this one thing. Each of us has like one purpose that we have. I don't think that's true at all. You know, purpose is something that evolves, and we can have several purposes at any one time. And but when we align with that purpose, that's when manifestation is like boom, boom, boom. Things just kind of fall into place. You get all the synchronicities, you get all the help that you need, all the, you know, all the physical assistance that you might need. Other people come into your life to make that happen. And that certainly happened for me when I was in the fashion business for quite a long time. But as that came to an end, that stopped happening. And it was becoming evident and clear that it wasn't flowing. So I was no longer aligned with my purpose. I didn't know what my purpose yet was. Until I had a mystical experience which showed me very clearly, you know, and I went on a vision quest, and I was shown very, very clearly what it was. And then things started to fall into place again, and things started to flow again. So, you know, I think when things aren't flowing in our lives, that's because, you know, we're not in alignment.
So are you saying then that even as a fashion designer, you were obviously very creative, going with the flow, but there came a point when you noticed that the flow just wasn't there, and that's when you had the I don't know, innate intelligence or instinct, that connection maybe to go inside, and that drove you to then look for, to be specifically seeking, because that's what a vision quest is, isn't it? You're specifically seeking guidance as to next steps, and you had that innate knowledge to look within in that way.
Well, I mean, the way that you put that into words makes it sound like it was this kind of beautiful process, but it you know, just kind of took a couple of weeks. But the reality of it was it took a long time, and there was a lot of pain involved, you know, and there was a lot of death of ego. There was some very dark nights to go through, and I think a lot of us experience this, you know. And these days we live, thankfully, for most of us, we live long lives. We get the opportunity to reinvent ourselves and to reconsider what our purpose is in life. That happened to me at 40 years old. I'm now 56. But, you know, not that many generations ago, a 40-year-old man would not really even think that there was, would not even consider the opportunity to reconsider the meaning of life and the purpose of life, you know. And I think that's one of the great things that has been happening to us, is that we're living longer lives. We do have so many opportunities to explore the possibilities of the human experience now. And even at 56 years old, I'm still re-exploring, I'm still redefining what my purpose is and how I show up in the world. And, you know, and you know, please God, and I use those words very literally, that this carries on for many, many years. And as and when this particular incarnation comes to an end, that, you know, I'm still exploring the potentials of the human experience, and have the, you know, have the energy and the enthusiasm to keep doing that. You know?
So you're really plugged into a different mindset at the moment, and have been for some time, where possibilities are there, where life is long and full of potential, where reconfiguration is possible, reinvention is possible. And I know exactly what you mean. I can well imagine in years gone by, generations gone by, most every, I mean, I don't know what the correct word is, but probably every 40-year-old man, even if within himself had been like a spark or a yearning or a knowing that something else was possible, the cultural parameters would have just stomped it out, wouldn't they? Just, nah, I'm at the end of the line here. I've been I don't know, a coal miner for X long, I'm going to continue being one. There wasn't that same opportunity for expansion, perhaps, and that's where manifesting these days is so much more possible. People are just more open to it, potentially.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely spot on.
So when did you first manifest,
It
do you think,
is.
Simon? If you look back at your life, you know, even into childhood, what was your relationship with manifestation like, going way back?
Well, we're all doing it, whether we're doing it consciously or not, or whether we believe in that or not. It's an innate part of the human experience. And, you know, from a spiritual perspective, each of us is the creator. Each of us is a divine spark of the creator. And the creator, let's say, created us to experience what it has created. And I've explored many dimensions outside of this 3D. So this 3D dimension that we're in is a dimension of physicality. So we experience what we call time is the experience between the thought and the manifestation of that thought in this 3D, this third density reality, because there is matter and there is inertia. Yeah, but when we go up into higher densities, then there's no time lapse between thought and manifestation. And I'm not just saying this theoretically or just conceptually. This is my experience. I put a lot of my focus into exploring, you know, kind of the other dimensions. So this is, yeah, from my experience. So I think to answer your question, you know, from day one, we're manifesting. And for most of us, there's time between the thought and the actual realization of that. And oftentimes, if we're not conscious in this, what we're actually manifesting might seem to be exactly what we believe we don't want. But it's what we've been focusing our attention on. So whatever we focus our attention on is what manifests. Now, when we're little kids, and I can remember this so clearly, I would get obsessed about something, you know, whether it was a new bicycle or wanting to have a pony, whatever, or going somewhere. I'd get so obsessed about it that I hardly thought about anything else, because in my little life, I didn't have anything else really to think about, you know, and I didn't have the fears and the ego mind that as an adult I have. So because of that, that manifestation would often be very, very, very direct. you know, that exact bicycle that I wanted, or that exact experience that I wanted. But then, of course, as we get older, we don't, you know, our minds become more complicated. We develop that sense of that ego, don't we, which is also made up of our fears and doubts and our beliefs about what is and isn't possible, and what we do and we don't deserve, and all those different things, you know. So, which is why oftentimes, for many of us, we will manifest the very things that we don't actually want, because we focus on what we don't want.
Yeah.
Don't we? You know?
We do. And as a psychotherapist, I see this all the time in people, because there's something about that monkey mind, they call it, don't they, which wants us to be very analytical. And, you know, if I throw myself in that direction at that speed, will I grab onto that branch, or will I grab onto that branch, or what could the consequences be? And there's something that's so analytical that sort of pushes us into that thinking brain, takes us out of that more childlike manifesting organic brain, or whatever you want to call it, which does get in the way a lot. And for me as a psychotherapist, obviously I work with people who've had all sorts of difficulties throughout their lives, not all of it from childhood, but many of them will have had difficulties from childhood. And it's come to my awareness that as long as we are still living out those programs, those indoctrinations, those injunctions, we are living outside of our own creative self, and therefore we are just vulnerable to the ebbs and flows of the sort of collective stream around us, and we can't step into that potency and that creative flow as easy as we could if that stuff was shifted out of the way. So to me, I'm really passionate about this for so many reasons. And I've done work for 25 years with people, and often gotten to the point that they are healed in terms of their psychological torment, but it's almost like now the work just begins. And that's the bit that usually I'm, you know, waving bye-bye, and that's what I'm manifesting at the moment, a way to get people at that point, or get them to that point and take them further. That's what's most interesting me right now, and that's what I'm focused on, happily.
Yeah. And look, I mean, it's a never-ending journey, isn't it? There's no, I don't think there is a destination. And there are times in the journey where it, you know, life feels good and we feel good within it. And then there are other times, and when, you know, the opposite is true, and that can pivot 180 in a moment, can't it? But I think, yeah, there was something I wanted to say in terms of manifestation there. Yeah, I mean, for me, what I have realized over the years, that this, what we're calling manifestation here, which really is the bringing into reality our visions and our dreams and our desires, that the major component of this is the being able to accept, being able to receive. And that's really counterintuitive for many people in the world that we live in, because we're very much educated from an early age, aren't we, that if we want something, we got to work hard.
Yeah.
That it's a dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah.
You know, things don't come easy to us. If you want something, if someone else gets something, it's going to be at your expense. So if you want something, you've got to be the top dog. All these kind of beliefs around the effort that is required to manifest, essentially. And what I've come to learn through my experience over the years is to really turn that whole concept around and be more in the role of the observer and the receiver. And this also comes with spiritual growth and a little bit of spiritual wisdom, and coming from a place of abundance rather than lack, you know, and again, through no fault of our own, from day one, we believe we live in a kind of world of scarcity. You know, we play musical chairs at birthday parties. There's 10 kids and 9 chairs. It's so cruel, you know, and life is this game of musical chairs, isn't it? You know, so when we realize and when we connect with source, with God, with the universe, whatever we want to call that, and realize that actually, no, that isn't true, that there's more than enough. And actually, our role is to be open to receiving. That's it. And when we do that, you know, God, the universe delivers. Now that sounds really, really easy. And theoretically, it is really, really easy. But again, when we've had all that conditioning that we've all pretty much all had, that the contrary is true, you know, that can be quite a journey to being able to just receive. You know, how many of us actually believe that we deserve everything that our heart desires?
So few.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's funny because when you were saying just then about that story, and then saying about how actually I make it sound easy, but it's really difficult because of the cultural programming, etc., that we go through. I was thinking at that time, yeah, that's a bit like the other week when you and I were having a chat, and I was just admiring how beautiful it looks in your healing center. And I said something to, you know, say, oh, it's amazing, it's a miracle, it's fabulous, that kind of effusive stuff. And then I wanted to be respectful. So I said, of course, I know you've worked hard to get this. So this is me, you know, a manifestor, a powerful manifestor for decades. And I'll say something like, of course, you've worked hard. And that's just the programming, isn't it? Yeah. And at the time you rightly said, well, actually, I try and take work out of the equation.
I'm pleased that you brought that up, because I think that's that is an important part of this. And this is something that I just I think I innately understood from a very early age, is that I never really got the concept of work. Even when I was at school, I either enjoy something or I don't. If I enjoy something, I'll put my energy and my time and my heart into it. If I don't, I can't be bothered. And that wasn't always recognized as being an attribute when I was a kid. You know, when I failed miserably at many of the, not many, but some of the subjects, you know, but I don't think it stood me in bad stead at all. You know, now this is something that I will often offer to people that I'm working with, you know, to clients, as kind of like advice when they say that they want to find what their purpose is in life. And I say, well, just move away from what doesn't feel good and move towards what does feel good, and you'll find your purpose in life. And it is that simple. It really, really is. It almost becomes by default, you end up where you're meant to be by just keep moving away from what doesn't feel good, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a place, whether it's whatever kind of situation it is. But yeah, and also back to what you were just saying, for me, the word work should be taken out of the English vocabulary.
Hallelujah.
You know? Yeah, for sure. You know, if you're going to do what you love to do, and if you do what you love to do and your heart's in it, everything you need will be provided. I guarantee that to anybody that listens to this. And if they're listening to me and thinking, yeah, well, that's okay for you to say that, but I've got this job and I've got bills to pay and everything, and I hear you, and I I know what that is like. I really do know what that is like. You know, I don't live.
And I think you have
in some
preempted
fantasy
there
world.
some of the objections from the audience potentially, which is good.
Yeah.
And I suppose I want to sort of add to that and say that over the years, you know, I've met countless healers, but I've not met many who've created a healing centre in a beautiful tropical paradise and are living that life without work, because if you're loving it, it's not work. So what is your secret? How can you pass on those tips to people? What would you say? What do they need to tune into the most, Simon?
You've got to do the work yourself. There's no shortcut for it. And what I mean by doing the work is the healing. To find that worth within yourself that allows you to receive what you're meant to receive. Because whatever your heart desires, it's already there for you. All you need to do is receive it. But as we've already mentioned, we put so many blocks in the way. And the healing really, for me, you know, if I was to define healing, it is removing those blocks. It's those, you know, and those blocks, they come into place through, you know, the ways that we've talked about, which are the cultural, societal, etc. beliefs, you know, but there's also our experiences or the traumas that we have, and they're very real. This isn't to say that they don't happen and we should just click our fingers and get over them. You know, there's also, there can be stuff that we bring in from past lifetimes. You know, you mentioned about healers just now, many healers that don't manifest like material abundance. And that's oftentimes because many healers bring in beliefs from past lifetimes that being a healer means being poor, that being a healer means being persecuted, and things like that, you know. So to answer your question, we've got to do the work. You've got to do the healing work. And I don't think there's any shortcut for that. For me, and by no means would I say my healing journey is over. Absolutely no means. You know, it's ongoing, and it's layers and layers and layers. But I went through a very intense period for about 5 or 6 years of being in an absolute dark night, you know, of being at a real loss of, who I was had to die to become who I am. You cannot, and if anyone knows of another way to do it, then share that with the world. But in my experience, you have to go through that, you know. And this is done in many, many traditions. You know, there are many rituals, many different approaches to this ego death. But we have to go through this ego death to then be able to allow our authentic self to really be our kind of experience of ourself, is to be that authentic self. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You've brought so much depth to that. Thank you so much. I mean, thinking of it in psychological terms, which obviously I often do, there is the research that shows that people prefer the familiar, even if it's vile, you know, just because it's familiar. So that can be, you know, demonstrated on so many minor levels. So actually to be talking about an ego death that lasts 6 years, and actually is a big ask, isn't it, for a lot of people? That sounds really hard, and that doesn't sound familiar, comfortable, or anything that anyone wants to go through, really.
Sometimes we're forced into it, aren't we? And this is where disease plays a role. You know, disease isn't something that just happens randomly because you've got dodgy genes, you know. And no, disease happens to get you on track to where you're meant to be, because you're so off track that your body, the frequency of your body is so out of alignment with the frequency of your life and the way that you're living, whether that's through the food and substances that you consume, the environment you live in, the relationships that you're in, the work that you do, the etc., etc., etc. Yeah. When we look at life and ourselves within life purely as energy, we see a different meaning to everything. And, you know, as you understand as a Reiki practitioner, you know, that our disease is caused by our vibrational misalignment with that kind of universal energy that the Japanese traditionally called the ki, the Chinese called the chi. So when we're out of alignment with that, we become sick. And so what we're doing in practice, a practice like Reiki, is to bring someone back into alignment with that. And that's how the healing happens. So yeah, sometimes these shifts in life are brought about by disease. And so many people that have recovered from life-threatening diseases say they share the same thing, don't they? They will say how it's also been their greatest gift.
Oh, absolutely.
As well. Yeah, so
wonderful. Thank you, Simon. That's so true, so wise. I really appreciate it. Before we finish then today, what's next for SImonheals? What are you up to? And maybe tell us a little bit about your healing centre in case anyone watching is so inclined to check it out. How about that for a couple of things?
Yes. So, you know, there's a wonderful saying that man plans and God laughs. You know, so whatever my plans are, something else is probably going to happen. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have plans. I prefer to change the word plan for vision. I think it's important that we always have a vision for ourselves. And if we were to, if I'm doing workshops with people around manifestation, it's very much about getting into into our emotional bodies to connect with the emotions that feel good. Because when we talk about what we want, however material that might be, that we're coming from a place of, well, when I have that, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to feel peaceful. I'm going to feel content. So we need to connect with that feeling first. Sorry, someone's trying to call me. So what I'm always doing each and every day is making myself, not making myself, but how can I feel as good as I possibly can, you know? And then I love to meditate. So when I sit and meditate, I'll explore in my mind the possibilities that I see in front of me. and then really connect with how are those possibilities sitting with me? What kind of feelings do those invoke? And if those feelings are feeling good, then I'll kind of stay focused on those. So where I'm at with that at the moment is 2 years ago, when the whole kind of world ground to a halt, and this healing center here, where I have like 45 rooms, suddenly went from being packed, jam-packed full of people coming from the West for healing to absolutely nobody. That I think for the first 6 months or so, like many of us, I'm like, okay, well, this will be over soon and we'll get back to normal. And then after a while, I kind of realized, no, that's not going to happen. And so I was like, okay, if the world can't come to me, how can I go to the world? So what I did last year, which was a great experience, was I opened up a kind of pop-up healing center in the Middle East, in Jordan, on the Red Sea in Jordan. And I mean, that was a great story, a great example of manifestation, because I started to think about that. Then I get a phone call literally out of nowhere from a woman saying, I'm thinking of opening a healing center based on, the kind of Thai style, and I've been recommended to talk to you. And so that was a great synchronicity. And then that started. And then towards the end of last year, again, it was in a kind of visionary state, in a kind of meditation, that I was directed towards going online to meet my not soul family, but to meet the group that I am here to work with, to be of service as healers at this time. And that's how you and I have met, because that actually, again, as another great synchronicity, shortly after that, I come across Mark Atwood's course, and the course itself has been extremely useful in terms of giving me tools to get that online kind of presence, to get the ball rolling there. But more valuable than that is I've been meeting the people that I'm meant to be meeting to do this work with. So I'm putting more and more focus into that. Thankfully, Thailand's opening up more, so we're getting more people coming here. So that's really, really lovely. So I'm very much enjoying this whole online journey and how that's unfolding. And if I could just use this opportunity for a little bit of a plug of what I'm doing there.
Please.
That as you know, Manda, through your own involvement, that I've been developing and launching some online courses which are really focused on, the first course is focused on self-healing and how we can heal ourselves. And then the second course is focused on how we can then extend that healing to others. These courses are based on the basic principles of Reiki, but they're more than traditional Reiki courses. And I've put them together in a way that they're done online at your own pace, using specially recorded material, but there's also the opportunity within that to interact live with a group and also with myself. So I'm really excited about these, and I'm kind of presented them in a way that financially also they're extremely accessible. And I feel that this is an important next step in my kind of purpose and mission. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I can speak for those courses, having done that recent Reiki too. It's fantastic. And to come from someone like you with all this experience and the fact that you walk the walk, talk the talk, you know, here you are having phone calls about opening healing centres in the Middle East shortly after you've decided, well, that's my next step, or you've tuned into that being the next step. You know, you're a really brilliant example of how to make your life how you want it to be, how to go with the flow, how to step into that manifesting power. So, you know, certainly that self-healing and then healing with Reiki is a brilliant first step for people to take who don't know quite where to go next.
Absolutely. And, you know, when we talk about healing and health, it's not just about our physical bodies. Now, of course, if your physical body is not in good shape, then that's a priority. But that physical disease and dysfunction is a 3D manifestation of multi-dimensional misalignment. You know, when I say multi-dimensional, which might sound a bit kind of out there to people, we're talking about those aspects of self that are not physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and beyond those, many of which we're not even consciously aware of. And whether you consider yourself to be a spiritual being or not, you are. We are spiritual beings. And no healing can happen without healing at the spiritual level. And so being healthy isn't just about having a healthy body, it's about having a healthy life and living in alignment with your potential. And each of us has incredible potential. We are not here to suffer. We are not here to live small versions of ourselves. Each of us here is here to be absolutely magnificent. And for me, that's what the journey of healing is about. And I'm nowhere near the goal, the destination. And I don't know if there ever is one. It is a journey, you know, and you know, that potential is endless, isn't it? Because we're also evolving as a species. It might not look like it sometimes, but we are. So it's almost like that goal keeps moving as we heal and evolve. That goal gets further and further away, you know. So who knows what our potential is, you know, into the future, you know, becoming like, you know, superhuman. And it's so exciting. And, you know, for me within this lifetime, I just want to realize as much of that as is possible.
Fabulous. And I think the world is really lucky that people like you have taken what's been a difficult situation, as you described, having your whole lifestyle change so dramatically, and the centre not having the visitors that it used to have, and turning it into something that is, you know, you wouldn't have, I suppose, looked at the online world before now if that hadn't happened, because you were very busy doing great work as it was, and that was great.
Exactly, you know, and there's a lesson in that, isn't there, for all of us, that oftentimes what we think of as being bad for us or unwanted is exactly what we need and exactly what we ask for. And when you are able to reframe your experiences in life like that, life takes on a very, very different flavor, you know? It really does.
Yeah, definitely. Reminds me of that story of the Chinese man, you know, the one about the Chinese man who, it's a Chinese story, so he's obviously Chinese, but he has a horse, a wild horse comes to him at his homestead, and all of his neighbors and villagers are like, oh, you lucky thing, you've got an extra horse, that's amazing, you're so lucky. And he's like, oh, am I? Okay, let's see. And then his son gets on the horse and falls off, has a terrible accident, and loses his mobility to some extent. And so all the neighbors are saying, oh, you poor thing, this is so awful, your poor son, this is terrible. And the Chinese man is it? And then the next thing, there's a war and all the young men are told to have to go and fight, and they're going to die. His son doesn't have to go because he's not capable. And, you know, and one thing after another happens. And it's that kind of, just that, I suppose it's that Buddhist non-attachment to outcome or expectation that perhaps releases some of this magic.
Non-attachment and trust, faith, isn't it? You know, yeah, I like that expression, releasing the magic. That's our role. We're all, you know, we're all extremely magical, potentially magical beings. Yeah, and we release that magic, as you say, through non-attachment and non-resistance. And, you know, in in the world of healing, we often use the word surrender, and surrender is not a weakness. It takes incredible strength to surrender, which means to let go of that perception of being in control. And that is exactly why, as you so rightly said earlier, that we will often stay in, you know, in awful situations because we're comfortable, because they're familiar, you know. But when we I remember, and I'm aware that we should probably bring this to an end, so this will probably be the last thing that I share, but I remember a point in my journey where I literally felt like I was at the edge of a cliff. And I remember going to see a really, really good card reader. And she said to me, she said, Simon, you're at the end of a cliff. She said, but don't worry, you've got wings, you can fly. And it's true for all of us. When we get to those cliff edges in our life, just jump. We've all got wings, we're all angels.
Oh, what a beautiful message to end on. I love it. Simon, my friend, thank you. I'm so grateful for your time today. So grateful. We'll see more of you, of course. And I'm going to put your links below for the centre, the healing centre, for people who now, you know, Thailand's opening up, so people can get there. Or for the Reiki courses that you offer that help people to take some of these next steps to find their wings. So the cliff doesn't look quite so scary, or even, you know, the cliff looks like an opportunity. Well, how about that?
Yes, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simon.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.